This is Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Good morning and welcome, my dear friends. You are listening to Enjoy Incredible Health with me, your host, Dr. David Vitko. I'm a chiropractic physician who has practiced in Columbiana, Ohio for the past 34 years, and I'm here to help you get healthier. So I believe I have a great, very interesting show for you today. I hope so. I don't want to bore you going totally one direction, but today we're going to go one direction for a little while, and then we'll kind of veer off some. So first, I want to remind you all to say some prayers for those that are in the path of Dorian. Man, it's a big, powerful hurricane and scary looking, and I feel deeply for the people in the Bahamas right now. It's right over there, and this devastating storm in so many ways. So I pray for all to be safe. And speaking of prayers, I really want to thank all of you that have been praying for my recovery from esophageal cancer. So many of you have reached out to me either with phone calls, comments on Facebook, or by email. And many of you have even sent cards of encouragement along with, possible treatment ideas and things that you've read and that I should look into. And I cannot tell you how deeply touched I am by the overwhelming outpouring of support I've gotten. God, I knew I had one or two listeners. My wife Denise and the two cats listen every day, and a few relatives, and I wasn't sure how many more, but apparently there's quite a few more people out there. And I appreciate that very much, and I try to do my best for you each week. And that's what gets me up on Sunday morning early, and that's why I'm here. But I cannot tell you how deeply touched I am by the outpouring of support. Honestly, it has brought me to tears at times over the past couple of weeks. I'm a pretty stoic guy, and I'm a pretty science-minded guy, and I'm kind of nuts and bolts. Hey, here it is. Here's the issue. Let's deal with it. And I don't tend to get real emotional, except when people start talking to me about it, and then it gets a little tough. But thank you from the bottom of my heart. So I also need to thank my wife, Denise. We spent 2 weeks in Florida to regroup and try to understand, where our lives are and to share some time together. And it truly was a wonderful time. But Denise has always been my rock when I need it most. And God bless me with her from the time I met her and every day we've spent together since then, 38 years. Thank you, Denise, and I really appreciate you. So now I need to get on with business. The problem with emotions is that they often get in the way of logical thinking. I'm not saying that emotions aren't good or bad or, they're important. Certainly, they're part of being human. But I don't have the luxury of extra time to dwell on emotions right now. If I get caught up in them, I try to shake them off and move on. So I don't want this show today or any future show to be in any way about sympathy for me or my situation. Folks, everywhere I look, there are people way worse off than me. And my heart aches for them because God gave me some knowledge and I guess an attitude to go about this and figure out, what I'm going to do and how I'm going to treat myself in the best way and what's best for me and my family and how I can help others through all this too and to learn. And but it sounds a little goofy to those who don't really know me, but I relish the opportunity to heal myself so that I can help others increase their faith in the healing power God put into each and every one of us. It is truly there is no medicine on earth, no physician on earth more powerful than that healing power built into each of us. And I know there are some people out there going, oh, yeah, what about this? Look, I've studied this for decades. I've seen what the body can do. And, I see every day what modern medicine can do, and they're great. I don't want to belittle what they do. They do fantastic things. But when it comes to creating health, your body is really in the driver's seat. And if we just find a way to harness that optimize that power. And this might include diet, exercise, herbs, medicines, and certainly prayer. Mostly it can include all of those, but you can't go about it willy-nilly. But if we can find a way to harness all that and focus it, then we have something. We truly have something powerful. The problem that I see oftentimes is, and I'll give you an example of this situation with my cancer. I have people sending me ideas all the time. I'll bet I've gotten 24 ideas in the last week and a half of, look, this person healed themselves this way. And every time I look into it, that person did 8 or 10 different things. So how do we know what really worked? And, 2 or 3 of those things were, well, they had surgery and they had it cut out and this and that. And so, how do we know that any of the natural things had anything to do with healing? You have to be a little bit scientific about this to try to focus and understand what it is that really truly made the difference. And maybe it's 2 or 3 things, which complicates the picture a little bit. But if you really look at it, you can hone it down. And today I'm going to go through what I have found through my research in the National Institutes of Health and in papers written by some really brilliant scientists that you've never heard of, and how I've been able to narrow that down to what I feel is the absolute best direction for me, and which may very well be the absolute best direction for people with many different kinds of cancer and many different kinds of profound, advanced inflammatory conditions in the body, because those two things are not very far apart. Inflammation, severe chronic inflammation, oftentimes becomes cancer. And it's a function of how those cells move from being inflamed to chronically inflamed to having these genetic quirks in them that cause them to just replicate like crazy and not die. And that's what cancer is in a nutshell, truly. So I'll bring you to the research that I found that I think hones all that down a little bit and gives, I'll focus on me right now because I'm not telling anybody to do exactly what I say. This is a very personal thing. So for all of you who have recommended different treatments for me, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. But it's when your life depends on it, you tend to be, kind of selective and kind of scientific, and I can't be just bombarding a whole bunch of different things that I have no clue whether they work or not. And when you read anecdotal evidence online, you might as well pee into the wind, I'm telling you, because you just never know what you're going to get there. And so I've honed it down to things that I think are verifiable and very powerful and have very good scientific basis. And so this is the way I'm going to pursue it. And don't get me wrong, I don't put all my marbles in that one bag. Prayer means a lot to me. I pray every day. I pray more now than I ever have, and I will pray from now on every day because it is powerful. And you can look at it in many different ways. You can look at it that it's powerful from God, which is what I believe. We're asking for healing from God. But it's also powerful in the way that it stimulates the body chemically and emotionally. It focuses your energy on healing. And so prayer, in many ways, like meditation, which some people would say is one and the same, does many things to help us. But it draws that inborn, built-in healing potential in our body. It draws it to where it needs to be. And helps to, again, I use this word a lot today, focus it. Focusing your energy and focusing your healing is very important. So for those of you who weren't here one of the last few weeks, I've been diagnosed with esophageal adenocarcinoma. It's considered to be a deadly cancer that can spread through your body fairly quickly. And the medical literature talks about life expectancies of 7 to 10 months by the time it's diagnosed often. And that is in general. And because most people who are diagnosed at a late stage or a moderate to late stage, because Usually that diagnosis comes from trouble swallowing, and once they find it, it's already pretty advanced. And indeed, mine on when I was scoped appeared to be a fairly well advanced thing, although I don't have any metastasis, or at least at the 4 weeks ago, when I had the PET scan, there was no metastasis. So I'm trying to contain it, keep it contained with what I'm doing, and give my body a chance to heal it. And I think that's the game for that. But according to medicine, the gold standard for treating this disease is to surgically remove the esophagus, reattach the stomach to what's left of the esophagus above the cancer, essentially placing your stomach into your chest cavity, and instead of in the abdomen where it's designed to be, laying kind of halfway sideways, now it's going to be vertical in the chest cavity. And so this alone creates all kinds of issues in the future with swallowing and digestion, and potentially many, many quality of life issues. So further, and also as a part of this gold standard of treatment for this cancer, and when I say gold standard, it is considered to be the best treatment they have right now. That's the gold standard. Not that somebody's going to make a lot of gold or a lot of money off it, which they do, but it is because it is the best. That was an attempt at humor, but anyway, so in addition to the surgical removal of the esophagus, then there's chemotherapy and radiation. So these two very powerful but potentially life-threatening treatments really devastate the body in many ways more than the cancer itself, at least a localized cancer. Now, once it starts to metastasize, that's a different story. But these two treatments are really hard on the body. They weaken the immune system. So they weaken our own body's defenses to the point where sometimes it encourages killer infections to start because your body's immune defenses are down. The body's immune system is so busy destroying and carrying off dead cells, both healthy and cancer cells from those treatments, that it becomes overwhelmed. So with this gold standard of treatment for esophageal cancer, and any cancer really, but we're talking about esophageal cancer right now, comes the very real risk that treatment may stave off the cancer, while the treatment itself often becomes the cause of death in the patient. And I've personally known this to happen in several cases. It's heart-wrenching. It really is. People think they're getting on top of it. They have the cancer beat, and then something happens, and they take a turn for the worst. And sometimes life is fragile at that point. So the other factor limiting this approach to treating cancer is the fact that radiation, and possibly the chemotherapy in many ways, may set the body up for a new cancer to form months or years after treatment is completed. These are radiation and chemotherapy are poisons to the human body. There's no question about it. They try to poison the cancer into submission, but at the same time, they're poisoning healthy cells and damaging them and setting them up for future failure and future genetic quirks that will cause cancer. There's no statistics on this at all. And yet it's pretty well known, even in scientific circles, that it happens. So we don't account for that, in the statistics. So add this to the fact that all this aggressive treatment, in my case, would end my ability to care for patients because I would be laid up for a period of time. And this surgery especially requires some downtime afterwards. And on top of that, besides not being able to work, then it would cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Likely resulting in maybe a few more months of life, maybe a couple more years of life. What quality of life? Is that good quality life when you're so weak that you can't get out of the recliner, or you can't get out of bed, and you can only do things for a little while because you become exhausted so easily? Is that quality of life? For me, that's not a quality of life that I would look forward to. So with all this in mind, even absent the possibility, there might be a better option available. Just maybe somewhere out there, there's an option that would at least allow me to enjoy the time I have left, or potentially actually stimulate and motivate my body to turn the situation around and fight the cancer at a level that could make a difference. Now, that's exciting to me. Instead of beating my body into submission, we actually kind of stoke a fire inside of it, and to get that immune system fired up and harness some of that power. So, I decided I'm not going to go the gold standard of treatment. I know a lot of people say, but this is the best. And believe me, every medical doctor I've spoken with, and God bless them all, I love them all. They're great people, and I believe they truly care. But every medical professional, everyone with any scientific knowledge, every study that I've read, they all have blinders on, and they see things through a vision that was instilled in them by their education and then by their experience. And so it's limited. I've brought up some alternative therapies that I believe have very good scientific basis to some of these doctors, and they won't comment on it because they don't know anything about it most of the time. All they know is maybe in their circles they've heard it, oh yeah, so-and-so tried this and they died. And, well, people die under the gold standard of care every day. The majority of people die under the gold standard of care for whatever reason. So death is not the best way to gauge if something has merit or not in cancer treatment. But in many ways, neither is the perception that the cancer was beaten or that the person recovered and there is no cancer, because many times that can be misleading too. And maybe in a future show I'll go into some of the little variations of that and some of the details of that, because there are many reasons for that. Perceptions, possibly misdiagnosis to begin with, many, many reasons. So my decision was made, and it was a tough one, believe me. I know that everybody I spoke with really deeply cares about me and wants the best for me. And all the medical people say the gold standard of treatment is going to be the best way to go. And my family and friends who have hesitated when I explained to them the direction I'm going, I know it's because they're under the misperception that the gold standard is guaranteed to work or has the highest value, the highest propensity to work. And that's simply not true. Now, I'm not saying that no one out there should just follow my lead and do this because I'm saying it. I've done a tremendous amount of painstaking research to arrive at my chosen course of treatment. That doesn't mean you should blindly follow my lead. It may not apply to your situation. Any serious disease you're diagnosed with requires your investigation, or maybe you bring in somebody in your family who is open-minded and has some medical understanding, medical education, who can help you discern what's good and bad. There's a lot of bad stuff out there. If you look at the internet, there is a lot of misleading information out there, and I can't help but wonder what kind of people would try to propagate things for money to cancer patients who are desperate for an answer without having strong evidence behind it. That I just can't even begin to understand what kind of person would do that. But trust me, there are many people out there like that. So don't read things on the internet and automatically accept that it's true. Don't see things on Dr. Oz and automatically assume it's true and valuable. There are many, many people out there with very little understanding of what truly has value, and maybe even very little understanding of what actually happened in their body in the healing process, who might be good intentioned, but also may not. And so I encourage you to really pay close attention to what you're reading. And I'm always free to share my beliefs. If you call and you want my opinion on things, I'll be glad to give it to you. But that you can take that for what it's worth too, because I maybe I have some blinders on too, but I try to be as open-minded as I can. So this whole thing, all this study kind of brings me to where my opinion of why I believe cancer treatment today is so far off track from where it should be. We really are not being given the best chance for long-term survival under the current treatment protocols. The treatment that's available now is aimed at 5-year survival rates for the most part. And, a lot of people can survive 5 years if you can do something to relieve that initial cancer, that initial tumor, or stop the spread of the metastasis. And, unfortunately, what it takes to stop that sometimes is detrimental to the long-term survival of the organism. And so think about it. We all know some people who've survived cancer or some serious disease. Of course we do. But we all know too many people who have suffered through months and years of painful, miserable treatment, only to pass, in my opinion, way too early anyway. So current treatment, in my opinion, causes too much collateral damage to the body in many cases for any reasonable expectation of that body's ability to return to health or to build better health. It just beats it down too much. And so, we need to keep all this in mind when we assess what treatment we're going to follow. So there are some new cancer drugs out there that are beginning to change the picture in the future. These treatments work to boost our own immune system. That's going to be the way to go. That's going to be the difference. But from what I've read in the research right now, that's got a ways to go to be something that we can depend on across the board. It's right now, it's maybe a little bit of hit and miss. Some people are actually dying probably as a result of the treatment, just like any treatment at this point. But, I think there is hope because of those new treatments. I think that will help down the road. Meantime, I've not given up. And I have decided on treatment that I think gives me the best shot. You know me, folks. I tend to be very positive, and I'm gonna, when I find what I'm gonna do, and I've discovered what I'm going to work on treatment-wise. I'm gonna give it my all, and I'm gonna pour everything into that, and I'm gonna do my best job at making sure that I do it in a way it could be reproduced if someone wanted to use it someday, and they can be valuable to other people. I see this whole experience of mine as a gift from God and an opportunity for me to figure out a way to either fix my own problem or at least treat it in a good way and share that with others. That's what this show's all about. You're listening to Enjoy Incredible Health. I'm your host, Dr. David Vitko. And man, folks, I appreciate you being here. And when you come back, we're going to talk about these treatments and how powerful they can be. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
Alrighty, we're back, and I'm going to try to get through some material here in the second half. I don't think I'm going to take any calls, folks. I got a lot to get through here yet. And, something that just occurred to me during the break that I'd like to do, because I know there's going to be people with cancer out there wanting information where I found my information and things like that. And trust me, I have scoured the internet, the National Institutes of Health, and many other sources that I could, as many as I could. And I've found things that I think are valid. So, look, it's hard for me to talk to everybody that calls, but if you call my office, and if you're not like an internet person, give Denise your name and address, and if I can do it, I'll send you out a list of, I'm going to put together a list of some sources of good information that I have, and you can read them and watch the videos and things. and decide for yourself, which way to go. I think that's the best way to go. I don't want to influence you on your decision. You need to weigh it all out and decide for yourself. But there is some good, powerful stuff out there, and I'd love to share it with you. So I'll try to put that information together. I'm trying to compile it all anyway to share with other people. So if you want it, call, give me your name and address. If you have an email, give me your email, and maybe I'll be able to just email it to you. But that'd save postage anyway. So you can call the office, 330-482-9550, starting on Tuesday, 330-482-9550, and I'll do what I can to get that out to you. If you have an email address, that's best. Like I say, it saves postage. So, all right, so I don't want to make this whole show about cancer. It can be pretty depressing for many people, I know, and God knows I went through several weeks of self-doubts and bouts of depression over this diagnosis. But I'm telling you, I'm done with that. I'm on a course, and I can't look back. And I think everyone should do this. If you adopt the course that you're going to follow, you should be true to that course, and especially if you see improvement. And I'm going to speak to that in just a minute here. In just a few weeks, that has happened. So I see an opportunity here to help others learn about health, and that is the goal of this show. I know I'm learning more each day in my efforts to heal myself. It's funny how when your life depends on it, it puts a sense of urgency in the whole thing, and maybe that's part of God's plan for me. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I work better under pressure anyway. That's always been the case. But that, I hope, will translate into providing the best knowledge I can to patients and the listeners of the show. And so that's my hope. So this may sound nuts to many people, but, here is one instance how I've been able to learn from my cancer diagnosis and the beginning of my self-treatment in a way that I think could help many people better understand exactly how diet affects our body so profoundly. And it does, make no mistake, and you've heard me say this before in the past, every morsel of food, every drop of liquid you put into your body has an effect, positive or negative. There is no neutrality. There is no, it has no effect on you. It's either positive or negative in some way. Now, some things may have a little bit of positive and a little bit of negative effect, or some things may have a lot of positive and a little bit of negative effect. We don't know some of those things, but there are many things that we can start to kind of tease out of the situation and understand a little better, and that's what I want to tell you about now. I'm really excited about this. Sounds crazy, I know, but yeah, you have to find excitement in everything, I think. So for many years, I've made adjustments to my diet and followed the changes in my blood health with regular blood tests. And the ladies up at the blood lab in Boardman know me pretty well from coming and going, and at one time they thought I was some psychopath that enjoyed getting needles stuck in my arm, but I really am trying to learn how diet affects changes in the blood, and positive or negative. I try to be open-minded about it, and I try to be scientific about it and not go in with preconceived notions. Sometimes that's tough because we all have these notions in our mind of what's right and what's wrong. So now the diet that I have to adhere to in order to change my metabolism in my body, the energy metabolism within my cells, is to help me defeat this cancer, is, in my mind, a great opportunity to understand and, most importantly, help all of you understand how a change in diet affects blood health and, in turn, our health in general. And so I've adopted this high-fat diet. I'm working toward 90% fat in my diet, and I'll explain why here in just a couple of minutes. And I know all you vegetarians out there are going, ooh, he's a convert traitor. I don't look at it that way. There is good scientific evidence behind what I'm doing that will help me slow and possibly defeat the cancer growth. And so that's what I'm doing. It's you can be altruistic as much as you want and cling to one way of looking at things all you want. But in my situation, I've decided I need to make a change. So for years, I wanted to adopt a strict ketogenic diet. That is a high-fat diet. A true ketogenic diet, that's K-E-T-O-genic diet, is high-fat. Dr. Atkins, who was famous, when he was alive for eating a lot of bacon and bacon grease and stuff like that, was a promoter of high fat to stimulate ketone production in the blood. That is an alternative energy source to sugar in the blood. And I'll say a bit about that in just a minute. But his approach was more high protein than high fat, or at least was high fat and high protein. Mine has to limit the protein significantly, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But you can produce more ketones and decrease the glucose levels much better in the blood, the sugar levels in the blood much better with a very high fat diet, 90% fat. And that's very difficult to achieve, trust me. I'm the most stringent, most dedicated guy there is on earth when it comes to doing it, but I've been tweaking this for 3 weeks, and I'm testing my blood every day at home with a glucose meter and a ketone meter, and I can't, 3 weeks, I can't quite get to where I need to be. There's a range where it's most successful in slowing the cancer in it. It's just very difficult. And so I'm working at it, and I'll let you know how that goes. And as a matter of fact, I record my diet every day. I weigh and record everything I eat and drink, and I keep a journal on it because I want to know how that affects my blood sugar, not only every day, but 2-3 days out, because many times that's how it works, blood sugar and ketone levels. And I also track my exercise. Yes, I'm still exercising, and it's a challenge. I don't have the energy I had, and I think it's mostly because of the diet, not so much the cancer. But the diet, my body is going through this process where I'm trying to adapt to this ketogenic diet, and it is truly an effort and a process, and your body takes a while to get to it. But so for years, I wanted to do this strict ketogenic diet to test whether cholesterol and other blood fats are directly related to this. I wrote the book some years back, Perfect Cholesterol in Just 3 Weeks Without Drugs, and I lowered my cholesterol 72 points by taking animal fats, actually taking most fats out of my diet. And so my belief at that time was it's purely fats that makes the difference, purely saturated animal fats, and I still cling to that belief, and I'll show you why here. But there was also, I took processed foods out of my diet at that time too, so how do I know it wasn't a combination of the processed foods and the saturated animal fat, or how do I know it wasn't more of the processed foods? This is why it's so difficult to tease out these facts from people's diets. I know that I keep very close track of how much, to the gram many times, of foods that I eat and fats that I eat and proteins and carbohydrates that I eat, and I can differentiate all that pretty strictly, pretty closely, but it's still a challenge. But these scientists, I think most scientists would give anything to be in my shoes right now in many ways, to be able to have this opportunity to prove definitively, at least in one person, which is not considered good science, but I'll tell you that we're all humans, and the food we eat affects our bodies very much in the same way, maybe over a longer period of time in some people than others, or maybe quicker in some people than others. But most scientists would love to have this ability to really focus and really track exactly what's going on. And I think a lot of people probably wouldn't go to the effort that I'm going to. But again, when your life depends on it, it makes it a lot easier to comply and to stay strict with it. So I've been wanting to do this ketogenic diet for a long time and actually see what truly happens to cholesterol. But I always felt it wasn't worth the damage I would do to my body over a couple of months' time to really see what happens. So now I have good reason for applying that diet strictly and really seeing what happens to my blood. And folks, I've been on this for 3 weeks, and I had my blood tested this last week. And I saw some astounding things in there that have helped reconfirm some of my beliefs. And also gave me a few more questions, but that's the nature of science. And I don't want to sound like I'm some kind of great scientist, because I'm not. I do have science training, but I have a lot to learn and understand. I know I don't know all the ins and outs, but I can make some pretty good assumptions out of what I'm doing. So this diet that I'm following, the reason I'm following it is that cancer thrives on glucose, otherwise known as sugar, in your blood. The higher your blood sugar, the more fuel readily available to the cancer cells, the more they can grow and replicate and keep growing and keep replicating and expand and cause what they call metastasis, which is when it goes to other parts of your body. That's actually what kills most cancer patients, oftentimes not the cancer growth itself, unless it's in the brain or on some vital organ. But many times it's a metastasis to other parts of the body, the spread to other parts of the body that ends up killing cancer patients. So has been demonstrated by numerous scientists, and I mean these are top-of-the-line scientists, guys like Dr. Thomas Seyfried. He's a cancer researcher at Boston College, and Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, who's also a cancer researcher and conducts other important research for the Department of the Navy at the University of South Florida, as well as many others of their colleagues that you've never heard of. But they've demonstrated in studies with animals and in some humans already with aggressive brain cancer that a ketogenic diet can slow and often stop, and in some cases reverse cancer growth by starving the cells of the sugar they need to thrive and grow. Now that's kind of in many ways, to me, is a no-brainer. If you can cut off the supply of fuel, then they're not going to be able to grow. Now, it's like, many ways, it's like in war, that armies often try to cut off the supply chain to the enemies and wait them out, basically, until they run out of ammunition and food and water and things like that. It's really not much different. The difficulty is that cancer cells not only thrive on glucose, on sugar, but they also thrive on something called glutamine, which is an amino acid, which is a fragment of a protein. So not only do you need to decrease carbohydrates, which are turned into glucose or sugar in the body, in the blood, you also need to limit your protein to just what your body needs each day for repair processes. And I've done both of those. I just haven't gotten as good as I need to be at elevating the fat intake, and I'm working on that. So anyway, I wanted to give you some information that I found really fascinating here. I had my blood tested, and as I said, I found out some neat stuff. So I've been eating, most Americans eat anywhere from, I don't know, it's a huge number, 250 to 350 grams of carbohydrates a day in their diet. And most of that's processed for a lot of people. It's not whole foods. Whole foods is a little better even in carbohydrates. So people that eat a whole food plant-based diet, they get a lot of carbohydrates too, because that's what is in plants. But that comes with a lot of fiber too. And my friend Dr. Merkin talked about the value of fiber in that whole picture. So fruits and vegetables do have high carbohydrates, but so do breads and pastas and baked goods and all that crap that people eat, that I ate for so many years. But so I went into this whole thing before I went on this ketogenic diet. My total cholesterol started out at 132, which is exceptionally low. Medical doctors like to see your total cholesterol under 200. Well, mine was 132 from my whole food plant-based diet. In 3 weeks on this high-fat diet, my total cholesterol has risen to 196. It's gone up a lot in just 3 weeks. And 196 is still under the 200 number, but it's not as healthy as 150 or 160, which is where I'd rather be, technically. So here's the other end of it. Adding insult to injury, my LDL, the low-density lipoprotein, that's the bad cholesterol, in my blood over 3 weeks rose from 72 to 138. Now, 138 is 8 points higher than what's considered to be a healthy LDL of 130. I'll tell you that 130 is still high. You know, for most people, it'd be nice to have your LDL under 100. So mine went from 72 to 138 in just 3 weeks. And look, folks, I wasn't eating junk on this diet. These are all whole food, healthy foods, but very high in fats and very high in animal fats. I'm going to tell you when I come back from the break what I ate over that 3 weeks and how I'm going to change that very soon. This is Dr. David Vitko. You're listening to Enjoy Incredible Health, and we'll be back in just a minute or two, folks, to finish up. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to Incredible Health with Dr. David Vitko.
All right, we're coming back. Woo-hoo. I only got a short time to get through some stuff, and boy, this is the hardest part. I got to pull it all together quick. So over the last 3 weeks, my diet has consistently been high fat. So look, folks, I've been eating bacon and eggs for breakfast with butter and sausage and you name it, some hamburger here and there. I've been trying to squeeze in as many vegetables as I can and still keep my carbohydrates low. I said the average American eats 250, 350 grams of carbohydrates a day. I keep mine under 12 for the most part. It's the only way I can get enough ketones in my blood, the alternative energy source that my good cells can thrive on. They can live on ketones very well, and the brain can function very well. You can tell I'm only tripping over a few of my words today. But the cancer cells can't live on ketones. So the more ketones in my blood, the lower the glucose, the better chance I have of snuffing out the cancer. So I've been eating all these things that I don't typically eat, and my cholesterol goes up. So now, over the next 3 weeks or so, I'm going to refine the fats that I'm eating to higher quality fats. Now, I have been eating a lot of high quality fats too, like some salmon and some avocado and nuts and things like that, olive oil. I'm going to tighten that down and try to really limit the animal fats as much as possible, if not eliminate them totally, and try to stay with the high quality plant-based fats. And then in 3 weeks, we're going to see what happens to my cholesterol and in my blood. By the way, my triglycerides are still good. And I've said this to many people before. If you have high triglycerides, it simply means you're eating too many calories every day. And if you truly start to track that and cut that back, and the cheapest source of calories are things like alcohol and high-fat fried foods and sugary things. But if you truly cut that back, your triglycerides will drop like a rock. And it might take a month or so for some people if they've been up high. But I've seen patients with triglycerides 11, 12, 1,300 that come down to 200 in just a few weeks. It's worth the effort. The triglycerides are fat that clog up your blood. So anyway, so a lot of soul searching going on, but I'm learning the ins and outs of this thing, and I'm going to test the dietary thing. I'm still going to control my glucose and ketones. I'm going to try to tweak that even tighter. I'll tell you more about that in the future. It's a complex thing that could be simplified if somebody comes up with a formula for it, and that's my goal. But anyway, my heart attack risk, because of the way I've been eating, has gone from 3.0 to 4.8. So I've got moderate heart attack risk because of the way I'm eating. I'm going to see if I can pare that down while still eating a lot of fats, but making them good quality high fats, a high fat diet. So look, my guys, Katz, McDougall, Campbell, Merkin, Furman, Bernard, they're all right, folks. We need whole food, more plant-based. You can still do some fats, but calories are king. If you decrease your calories overall, you're going to live longer. This is Dr. David Vitko. I'll be back next week on Enjoy Incredible Health. Thanks for listening, folks.